Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I'm your host, Scott Brady, and I'm joined today by Jess Stuhler. Now, Jess runs a company called Eezi-Awn, but he's been a longtime friend. I've known Jess for just about 20 years, and we've done extensive travel in all of Southern Africa and also in the United States. Now, what makes Jess very unique is really their discipline around making authentic overland equipment. This is not a podcast about Ezyon, but it is certainly a podcast around how Jess got involved with Ezyon, how he took the company over from his dad, who's been running it for 40 years, and also how Jess learned how to produce such high quality components. So we talk a lot about Jess's travels. We talk a lot about the ethos of high quality equipment, what makes South African equipment unique in the world. Also, some of the things that Jess has learned about traveling with his family. So please enjoy my wide-ranging conversation with Jess Stuhler.
Jess, thanks so much for being on the podcast today with me. I appreciate it. I've known you and your family for coming on 20 years now, and I have such respect for your dad, Jack, and such respect for you. And I've learned a lot from you, not only about how things are made in Africa, but how South Africans travel overland. So let's talk a little bit about what was your first memory of overlanding that you can recall?
Oh, geez, Scott, it goes back years, So the thing is, from when I was born, Dad was traveling. He was already going to Botswana and he's going to Namibia and stuff like that. So we used to take Series 1 Land Rovers and we used to go to Botswana. And in those days, it used to take 2 days to get to Maun,
Amazing.
And, he used to bath me in a little bucket, a little bucket next to the river and stuff like that. So it goes back long ways, and in those days, my mom and my aunt, they used to sit in the back with towels wrapped around them because of the dust,
Sure.
And we used to silicone, they used to get underneath and I'd shine the torch from the top and he'd go along finding the holes and we used to silicone the whole thing, but we never ever got those Series 1 Land Rovers to seal, so it goes way back, it's a part of my life, and for you to say that is something special.
Well, Jess, this time that we've had together, I've been to South Africa now, I think we figured out 10 times, but every time I've come here, you and I have gone and done something neat together, like this trip right now. We're in the Waterberg, and we spent the whole day yesterday driving around in these incredible vehicles and seeing a country that you were born in and that you love, but that also I've come to love in my life. And I think that there's something about not only South Africa for someone who loves to travel, but the lessons that can be learned from how South Africans overland, because it was really the South Africans and the Australians that started this whole thing. You guys were the ones, for you it was camping, but it had to be overlanding, because if you wanted to go see Botswana, you had to hop in a Series 1 Land Rover and drive for 2 days.
Well, exactly that, and I think, obviously, you're 100% correct. The Australians and the South Africans, I think, pioneered the market. In those days, you didn't have the fridges and you didn't have all the amenities that you got today. You had a cooler box with hot ice in it, and you used to wrap it in newspaper to give you. And by the end of the holiday, you didn't have cold food. And
sure.
You used to have a Hessian bag hanging on your mirror to give you cold water. So, and for you to come out and spend time with us is always, it's irreplaceable. So thanks. I know your time is always, you're so busy and stuff like that. I always say to my wife, if I want to know what the weather's like around the world, I speak to Scott Brady. So the thing is it's, so I really thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time out. It's
Jess, I look back on, it's been 20 years doing this, and one of the very first pieces of equipment that I got sponsored was an Eezi-Awn 1200 tent. And this was back when Nathan Hinman ran Pangea Expeditions. Now, contemporary to that, your dad had started his big expedition in the Americas. And for me, there just wasn't a lot of content out there on that. And your dad was running a blog, if I remember correctly at the time, and they would update with their photos. So here I'm looking at, Nathan Hinman and all of the stuff that he was doing with Pangea. And then here's your dad taking this amazing Land Cruiser up the length of the Americas. And so for me, Eezi-Awn was the high watermark of what I felt was long-term, durable overland camping equipment. And when I finally got a chance to get that 1200 from Nathan, it really did expose me for the very first time to South African products. And there were other roof tent companies at the time from South Africa that were also very good, but they were all known for being so durable. And what do you think, whether it's Ezyon or at the time Howling Moon or whatever, what do you think made South African products so reliable and durable? What do you think were some of the attributes that made those products so effective?
Well, I think first of all, what people don't realize is the distances that we have.
Yeah.
So if you travel to Botswana or something like that, it's a 2-day trip to get anywhere. So you need a product that can stand up to those conditions. Yeah. And then obviously, yes, Africa is starting to there is more and more asphalt or tarred roads, but in those days they were all gravel roads.
Yeah.
So that all determined on how the product had to last. So it had to endeavor all those things. And then what Eezi-Awn did at the time was we never invented the roof tent. The roof tent was invented in the early 60s in Europe. But what we did was we took the concept and we put the bigger windows in it because of the temperatures that we have, and we put the window rods in, and we changed the hinges and we made everything aluminium so that it would be lighter, and we made the ladders able to fold up and stuff like that. So we played a big role in pioneering the roof tent.
Yeah.
But we never invented the roof tent. And then obviously we needed it to be able to go on a trip for 4 weeks into Botswana and Namibia, where there's endless corrugations, and similar to I think Australia's also got miles and miles of corrugations if you go out to Ezrock or whatever,
Yeah.
So I think they also had similar things in mind, and that's why I think the Australian and South African products were the pioneers in the industry and moving forward. And then obviously Dad, he loves to travel. He's been traveling his whole life. So he traveled through Africa twice, all the way to Europe, and then he did the Americas. So he did Patagonia all the way to Alaska. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when he met Paul from Equipped.
That's right.
And they became friends, and Paul became a distributor of ours in America. Yep. And we've been friends ever since. So it's interesting to see how everybody wants things to go lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. But unfortunately, there's a up and a downside, because obviously as you go lighter, there is a little bit of a quality depreciation. Doesn't matter how you sit. And when a roof tent or any other tent is live on the vehicle, it's live, so it moves around, it shakes and it rattles. It's not like a dome tent that you stick in the back of your car.
So true.
So that's the problem.
And it's meant to last for years. I remember I've seen many Eezi-Awn tents or other high quality South African roof tents that have been on vehicles for years around the world. And I believe it's the thickness of the canvas. It's the fact that you guys have such a heavy duty cover, so it can actually hold up to some brush scrapes in really tight terrain. And then you guys use these high quality mold resistant wood floors as well in most of your products, and they just really hold up over the long term. I'm just sitting here thinking, a lot of the people in my life that I'm closest with actually came because of that 1200 tent. It is because Paul, Paul is behind the camera today. Paul is working as Paula today, producing the podcast, while making sure it's continuing to record. But Paul May from Equip reached out to me because he saw that I had a 1200 Eezi-Awn that I had been using. I had a bunch of imagery and I was doing some cool stuff with it. And he said, how can we help? And then through that, I got a chance to meet your dad, and then I got a chance to meet you. And, you know, so these are friendships that have lasted 20 years because of high quality products. And I think high quality products tend to bring higher quality people because they're trying to do something that they're proud of, and they're trying to do something that lasts for their customers so that their customers get a good value. So in my mind, anytime I interact with a higher quality product, I mean, AEV is another great example, and Dave Harriton, and just people who really care about the quality of the products that they make, they end up being really high quality people. But you know, the South African stuff is really special. And what other, like when you look back on those early trips, what were some of the things that you used then that you still use now? Like it really works.
Wow, that's well. The thing is we were cooking this morning on the skottel. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I still use. I still use my Coleman cooler box, you know, that I put in the back of my car, and it goes with me everywhere.
Yeah.
I still like to use a bottle jack. You know, I take the normal jack of a vehicle out, and I put it one side, and I take a bottle jack with a plank with me, and everybody goes, geez, why do you do that? You know, I've just found it's the easiest way to jack up a vehicle. You know, so there's so many things that I still stick with. I think my wife looks at me and she thinks I'm crazy, but there's certain things with camping and stuff like that where I just like what I like, you know, and I take those certain things with me all over the place, you know. So
well, and I've, you know, in the time that I've known you, you have owned a lot of Toyota Hilux. What is it that you find that you like most about the Hilux, and what are the things that you like to do to each one of them, like your standard modifications that you like to do to a Hilux?
Well, originally when I bought vehicles and stuff like that, I would always put the bumpers on and stuff like that, and I'd go to town. But what I found is, unfortunately, is that the more weight you put on it, the less performance you have, and in some ways it's a bit of a hindrance. And I like to, you know, we keep our Hiluxes for 2-3 years, and then we move them on. Now the Hilux is a crazy vehicle because it doesn't do everything perfect, but it does everything well.
Yeah.
You know, so you can
forever.
And forever, you know. So 100%. So you know, so if I had to buy a Hilux, you know, you unfortunately or fortunately, you need to go up with the suspension in the front slightly. They always dip in the front. Toyota likes to increase the wheel size, but I don't believe that helps the problem. So you need to go up in the front. So whether you put, I normally go up with a rating of the springs in the front, and then the springs at the back, I normally put another leaf spring at the back, and that gives me, I can carry anything up to 750 kilograms. You know, so those are the things that I do, and then I change the tires out. I like BF Goodriches. I've always liked BF Goodriches. We've traveled around the world with BF Goodriches. They're not the perfect tire. You do find that they do slip a little bit in the wet.
Yeah.
But they give you 80,000 kilometers if you drive carefully and you swap the tires around.
That's true. Yeah, they do last a long time.
They do, you know. So, but you know, like I was saying, I mean, the last Hilux the Hilux that I had was the Legend. And every time that you buy one, you know, it's little model changes, but it's crazy. But they definitely, that little bit, you know, it's either quiet or it handles better or it does something, you know. So it's a very special vehicle in my heart. Even though, you know, I drive a lot of different vehicles, but and it's go anywhere ready. You know, you can take it to the Kruger Park, you can take it to Namibia, you can take it to Botswana, you know.
Yeah.
Fuel consumption, you know, on average is between 10 and 11 liters per 100. It'll sit at that all day. They never get hot, and they've never ever let me down, you know.
And I think that's the reason why so many people rely on the Hilux. You know, I think about when Greg and I went across Antarctica with Expedition 7, like we literally trusted our life to a Hilux, and they never stopped running. They never stopped working. They truly are amazing vehicles. And the fact that you could hop in one, like we've got a Hilux right now from Overlanding with Bruce, So those that are listening, check out Overlanding with Bruce. He drives a Defender 110, a new one, and he does some really cool stuff with it. So it's neat to see him pushing that model. But then he also rents fully prepared Expedition Hilux here in Africa. And I've got one of them that I'm going to be taking on a trip out to go see Kingsley Holgate in a few days. So, you know, the Hilux they just are the workhorse of Africa.
100%, and that's why I mean, look, you talk about Bruce. I mean, he's an amazing person. He's a friend of mine, and he's an amazing person. And the thing but the what people don't realize is 90% of the hire rental side of things all run Hiluxes.
Yeah.
And you know, the crazy part is, you know, like if you take a Legend, it comes with the driver's seat electric, but the passenger seat not. So you know, but they still are amazing vehicles.
Yeah.
And 100%, Bruce now, I think he's on his 6th Hilux, and he went down to Cape Town now to fetch one of them. Hopefully you'll meet up with him when you get back to Johannesburg.
That's right.
Yeah. And he's done some amazing trips, and he's traveled all around Africa in Land Rovers. And now he's got a few Hiluxes, and don't get me, they've also given him a little bit of troubles, but he sorted it out. But it is the go-to vehicle for Africa. I think because it is expensive. It is becoming more expensive.
Yeah.
But it just does everything nice. You can use it as a day-to-day driver, and you can also take your kids away and stuff like that, and your wife away on the weekends.
And probably the biggest issue with the Hilux globally is theft. So, you know, you just had the one that I borrowed yours. I borrowed yours the last time I was in Africa, not all that long ago, and I had a beautiful drive with it, and it wasn't 2 weeks later, and you're like, Scott, I'm so glad you got a chance to drive the Hilux because it's gone.
Well, geez, you know what? So many people have come into the company, and some of my friends have said to me, listen, I've lost my Hilux, I've lost my car, I've lost my Land Cruiser and stuff like that. And I really, you know, you obviously feel sorry for them. But when it happens to you, and yes, I can buy another one, but the crazy thing is they creep into your heart. And you remember those amazing trips that you have. You know, I mean, my son and I went to with a friend of mine, Graham Sharp. We went up to Zimbabwe. We went to Gonorozo and stuff together. And you remember all those trips, you know, all those amazing trips that you have in the vehicle. You know, so when somebody takes it unexpectedly, it's it's not the most pleasant.
And I think it is. You definitely get that feeling of like violation, like you've been something. It's like a member of the family. A vehicle like that becomes, like you said, all the stories and. Somebody takes it from you, and man, it probably feels, you feel a little bit violated, you know.
Yeah, 100%. You know, the other thing is you haven't sold it. So normally when I like to look after my cars. I really do. They're very precious to me. So the thing is because you haven't sold it, it's like you're going to come home, and I didn't drive it every day.
Yeah.
So you're going to come home, and it's going to be standing in the garage. You know. Yeah. So for the first couple of months, you still come home and go, well, where is it? You know.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think, you know, it's the craziest thing, and yes, like I said, you can replace it, but they all have got a little place in my heart.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, that's why Bruce, he's I mean, this one is they all got their names. He's called them all their names because his vehicles also got a place in his heart. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
So. Quite the coup, though. You are now currently driving a different pickup truck. What are you driving now?
Yeah, so the crazy part is I'm actually driving a Ford Raptor now.
Well, it is a Ford Raptor.
Yeah.
So it's a Ford Ranger Raptor.
Correct.
You guys get the Ranger.
Correct.
Here
Yeah.
only.
So we get the Ford Ranger Raptor, and yes, it is different. It is different. Is it better? Maybe not, you know.
Faster.
It's definitely faster. Yeah, definitely faster. Fuel consumption is more. But it definitely puts a smile on your face. It's more like a car. And, you know, that's the scary part. As much as we all like to say we spend so much time in the bush and off-road and stuff like that, at the end of the day, you know, we all have to, well, I have to work for a living. So you spend 80% or 90% on the road and 10% in the bush. In reality, so it is a very comfortable car. It hasn't given me a day's trouble up to now. I've done 10,000 kilometers. and we've taken it on a few trips already. We had to put, because obviously it's a trophy truck. It's not really designed for off-roading. I don't think.
For overlanding so much.
For overlanding, you know. So the tank, because of the fuel consumption, the tank is a little bit small. 350 k's. Yes, if you drive at 100, you most probably will get 400 kilometers. But in reality,
you don't drive that fast.
I don't drive at 100, you know. So the thing is we put airbags in the back of it, and we put another tank in it.
So is it an auxiliary tank, or is it just a larger main tank?
So yeah, it's a larger main tank. So you basically take the tank out, and it gives you 140 liters from 85. So
wow. That's
so
a big jump.
It's a big jump, and I get over 600 kilometers on it now,
right.
which makes it accessible. You know, you can at least get to places, and so forth. So we'll see how we'll see how it stacks up, and obviously they also steal Fords, but hopefully they won't steal my one. You know, so.
Yeah. Well, and it's a great looking truck. I remember when we went out to dinner the last time I was here, and you picked me up in the Raptor, and you had a big smile on your face. I think you had only had it for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or something like that. You had really been having a fun time with it, and they're an impressive vehicle on mixed terrain. When in 2020, when I was here, when COVID was just kicking off, the day I left for the airport, I got a chance to drive the Ranger Raptor at speed at a test track here in South Africa, and I was really impressed for a factory mid-size vehicle that it performed that well. So yeah, really good.
100%, you know. And look, I had the Hilux with it, so obviously I was enjoying both wheels, but somebody decided to take my Hilux away from me. So we'll sit back and we'll wait and see, and let's see how it pans out, you know. So I'm enjoying it as it goes.
So let's talk a little bit. You've been able to travel a lot with your wife and with your two kids. You and your wife's story is really special. You guys met when you were 13 years old, and you guys have now been together for a huge portion of your life. How is it that you find, as a family, that you guys optimize backcountry travel, overland travel together? How do you incorporate the kids? How do you make the experience as enjoyable as possible for your family when you travel?
Well, look, the crazy part is because my son and my daughter have grown up with me, you know. So now when we travel, I mean, we literally, it's almost like they know exactly what to do, you know. So they know exactly what to do when we get to a campsite. They know what to take out. They know what to put back. Everybody does their little piece. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, we you know, when my son and I or the family travel together, they now are getting big. I mean, my son's now 21 and my daughter's 24. She's just moved out to with her boyfriend into a flat, which is very different because we're a very close-knit family.
Sure. Which is something I've always just so respected about your family in general.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. So the thing is now when we travel, we actually have to travel in two cars because my son's got a girlfriend and my daughter's got the boyfriend. But it's still great. It's still great. It makes things interesting, you know. So, but up until that stage, you know, what we would do is we would have two roof tents on the vehicle because, you know, a lot of people say, you know, I want a family roof tent, but what people don't realize is with the big tents is you get to a stage where your kids are of 6 and 7 and 8.
Yeah. And
they want to be in their own tent, you know, whether it's a dome tent or a roof tent or whatever it is. They want to be in their own tent, and the bigger tents, the very big tents is I say go to 1800, and then after that the 2.2s, the very big tents, they're not that easy to sell
or set up.
100%. You know, it's more material, it's more everything, it's more weight, and not every vehicle can carry them. You know, so I always say to people, rather have two smaller tents, and then, you know, if the kids move out, then they use their own tents. You know, so. But at this stage, so what happens is we traveled with two smaller tents for a lot of our travels that we did, and that worked out pretty well, you know.
And what do you think when you look back on the time traveling with your wife and your kids? How did that change you as a person?
Oh, geez, you know, the thing is I think people don't understand, you know, traveling with your kids, and the nice part about it is if your kids enjoy what you enjoy, you know.
And it seems like they do.
Oh, they do. You know, the thing is, and that's the other thing is you always hope that your kids enjoy what they do, and they have always. You know, he's always enjoyed the motorbike side of things. He loves cars and he loves fishing, and then you get to a stage where you're scrambling to keep up with it. You know, so it's got its pros and its cons, and my daughter as well. I mean, they love the outdoors. You know, so I think my wife would spend more time outdoors than indoors. You know, so. Yeah, you know. So it is.
But what a blessing for you that you love the outdoors, camping, overlanding, and your whole family loves it just as much as you do.
100%. You know, the thing is what people don't realize. In early days, we could have marketed it, but we just got passionate. You know, to see our products anywhere in the world. You know, I've been to Vegas on the Strip, and I've seen my tents in Vegas. You go to London and you see the tents in London, and then and to chat to people around the world, and to meet people like Paul May from Equipped and stuff like that, and to meet yourself, unbelievable people. So it's been an absolute pleasure and an absolute adventure, you know. And we to do the things we do, you know. Yeah,
we're so lucky. And that was actually how I met Paul Marsh too, because we were getting the Land Cruiser. Or we were trying to get the Land Cruiser ready for Antarctica, and the outfit that was going to do the work for us didn't work out. And sure enough, Paul Marsh stepped up, showed up at the Eezi-Awn shop, and we got that thing ready for Antarctica in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Well, Paul's somebody special, and he's a very special person. I chatted to him the other day. I chatted to him before Christmas. He was now in New Zealand on doing a trip to the historic cars again. Him and Joe. So yeah, I mean,
they're lovely people, and for those that are listening, Paul Marsh was on the podcast a couple times. We talked about 70 Series Land Cruiser, and we also did an interview with Paul specifically. So I'd recommend people listen to that, because that guy's forgotten more than I've ever learned in my life about overlanding. So he's truly a legend.
Well, look, I think he's 100%, and his experiences. I actually don't know of somebody else's that has that much experience on a mechanical side, and then on a trip side. You know.
Yeah, he has them both. Because sometimes you'll find people that travel a lot, but they're not very strong mechanically.
Correct.
Or people who are very effective as mechanics or as engineers, designers, but then they don't have the travel experience. And Paul's definitely one of those rare ones that has it both in spades. So
correct, 100%.
Yeah. So continuing on the theme of family, you get to work with your dad. So your dad founded Eezi-Awn, and what would that be? We're coming on 50 years, right? Aren't we?
Yeah. So we're not quite 50 years. We're 40 years last year.
40 years last year.
So it was 40 years last year. Obviously, we've been traveling a lot before that. But so Ezyon is 40 years old. So this year will be 41 years, which I think is quite a milestone.
Yeah.
I think there's very few companies that have reached those milestones. He's getting on in years.
Yeah.
Still traveling. His vehicle standing behind us.
Yeah, the 300 Series Land Cruiser behind us belongs to him. So thanks, Jack, for letting me borrow your car.
Yeah. So he's still an avid traveler. He's got some trips planned this year. He's going to Kalahari and stuff like that. It worries me a little bit, because I mean he's 86 this year, you know. So it does worry me a little bit, but
you got to do it though.
You got to do it.
Go.
You got to get out there. And I don't think anything will stop him. I think I don't want to be funny, but you must probably die on the road, you know. So
that's probably what he hopes for, doing something he loves, right?
Yeah, I know, you know. So we've got a very, very special bond. I mean, he's got a very special place in my heart.
Well, so talk to me a little bit about how did you start working with your dad? Did you just have you doing the shipping, or like how did you get into? Because now you run the business. So how did he bring you into the business? What do you think he did well that helped you get to the position that you are now? Like, how did that process start for you?
Well, look, in those days, we didn't really have a choice, you know. So the thing is he loved the overlanding side of things. He owned a very big mail order company, one of the biggest mail order companies in southern Africa at the time, and he loved the overlanding side of things. So we started with the awnings. We developed.
That's where
awnings.
The name came from.
Correct. That's why it's called
Eezi-Awning.
Yeah, and we've sold 300,000 Series 2000 awnings worldwide. So it's a good chunk of awnings. But yeah, so he started with that. And then obviously I love to do things with my hands. So I've always loved to work on stuff, and whether it's been motorbikes or cars or whatever it is, I've always liked to work on stuff. So it was just a natural progression that I started working in the factory. And in those days, there was only a few of us. So we started very small because there was no overlanding products in South Africa. There was no awnings in South Africa. It was very rare to see anything like that, you know. So we started very small, and I used to work in the factory, and I used to drill, and I used to put things together.
Amazing.
So that's basically how it started, you know.
And what do you feel like are the 2 or 3 things that you learned most from your dad? Like life lessons or how to run a business. What are the things that your dad, you feel, taught you most?
Wow, I don't know if you can put 2 or 3 things in. You know, he's an incredible businessman. He's an absolutely incredible businessman. So the thing is, and he's a perfectionist. You know, if it's a millimeter skew, it's skew. He's an absolute perfectionist. So I think all of those things, you know, that things need to be perfect and they need to be right, and it needs to be done right. I think that all played a part of it. And then because of the way his life evolved. He was so involved with things, and you know, people laugh at me, but we had the first bull bars on the vehicles in the early days that he made out of pipes, and we used to have metal roof racks that we put together in the early 60s and 70s and stuff like that. So he was forever building cars and forever building things, whether it was motorhomes or boats or houses or stuff like that. So the engineering side of it just came completely naturally to him, and he's an engineer by trade. So all of those things, I think, you know, obviously have stood us the good set of time. And then he owned quite a few businesses, which also helped with the business side of things, you know. Yeah.
I've noticed that about Afrikaners in general, is that they're not only very industrious, but they have this term in Africa, Afrikaner makes a plan. I mean, like you guys do as Afrikaners in general, South Africans in general, are very self-reliant. So they just figure stuff out. Have you found that to be the case?
I think so. I think we've always made a plan, you know, because I mean, years ago there wasn't a thing that you could pick up a cell phone and get help, you know. So you had to make a plan. If a suspension arm broke or if something broke, you know, whether you put a piece of block of wood or whatever in it, you know. But I mean, my dad's always said, I mean, a problem's not a problem. You need to just find a solution for it, you know. And there's thousands of answers to one problem. You just need to find that solution, you know. So I think South Africans are very much that way inclined, because they've had to make do with what they've got, you know.
Yeah. Well, and on the topic of South Africa, what are your favorite, if you were to give someone a recommendation of your top 3 trips to do out of South Africa? Like if somebody was to get a hold of Bruce with Overlanding with Bruce and hire one of his Hilux, what would be your top 2 or 3 trips that you would recommend people consider?
Well, Scott, you know what, South Africa is an absolutely amazing place. I mean, you know, like we were saying, you know, 6 hours in the bush and 6 hours you're at the coast. But look, obviously the two top 3 places if you wanted to go out of South Africa would be Namibia. I mean, there's parts of Namibia that are phenomenal, you know. And then obviously Botswana, that everybody loves Botswana.
What area of Botswana do you like the most?
Look, I like Baines Babs, and I like Central Kalahari. I like the bottom of Central Kalahari, the top of Central Kalahari. So personally, I like those 2 areas, you know.
It is a trip I've wanted to do, is a trans Kalahari. I've been through the southern part of the Kalahari, but it would be neat to go all the way through the Kalahari.
Yeah, you know, that's got a special place. Look, there's often, you know, if you drive through Central Kalahari, there's, you know, what people don't realize is, you know, when I go to the bush, it's not about seeing the big 5. Yes, if you see the big 5, that's great, you know, but obviously I've seen the big 5 a number of times. Yeah. It's about the small things. It's about the mountains. It's about the trees. Yeah. So there is sections of like the Central Kalahari where you don't see much wildlife because obviously there's not a huge amount of water and stuff like that. But if if you just want to be out there in the bush, and then it's it's an amazing place.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I mean, Bruce Turner would be the guy to speak to about Zimbabwe. I've done a lot of traveling, like to the Matopas and to all places in Zimbabwe. But Zimbabwe is also a very special place. But yeah, so I would say Namibia, Botswana, and then Zimbabwe. So if you want to go to monopools or whatever. But
I've heard that's unbelievable.
100%, but you actually need to give yourself, you can't do it in a week, you need to give yourself a bit of time to check it out,
That is one of the challenges with Africa, and on this current trip that I'm on, I just finally said, Scott, you're going to have to break it up so you don't have to rush, because I think I'll be in Africa for 6 months over the last 12 months, and I still feel like I don't have enough time. So, there's just so much to see, and this continent is so special, and the people are just beautiful here. They're just you live in the Garden of Eden,
100%. That's the thing, and sometimes we think we don't, but we actually do, because you look at this, what's around us, and you take it in, and it's you actually get compulsory. You don't realize what you've actually got behind behind you.
So part of your early life as well, you were in the military, and if I recall correctly, you served in Angola. So first of all, thank you for the service that you gave to your country. You and I are both veterans. You had a harder time of it than I did, having to go to war in another land. But how do you feel like the military changed you? What did you learn from your time in the service?
Wow, the thing is we didn't have a choice, So we basically, you went to a train station, they stuck you in a train, and off you went, and you ended up at your camp, and then you got shipped around. But I think the crazy part is it teaches you life skills, because up until that stage, obviously you're staying with your parents, and you're very cuddled and stuff like that, and it definitely teaches you life skills, and those life skills, I think, help you through your life, whether it's ironing your own clothes or whatever it is, I think the army is indirectly it teaches you, it breaks you down and builds you back up, Look, I lost my zest for guns and stuff like that, but so be it, not everybody does, but I did, so
which is totally understandable, right?
Well, I suppose so, so but yes, you make friendships that can't be broken, and it is what it is,
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I feel the same way. I felt like I was a ship with a lot of potential, but no rudder. So I was just being blown wherever the wind was taking me at 19 years old. So yeah, going in the military made a big difference in my life.
Yeah. The crazy part is now, I look at it, it was 2 years of my life, and it felt like an eternity,
Yeah.
And now 2 years of my life goes by so fast. It's just amazing how when you're in the military it takes so long, So.
Yeah, and I've heard that part of the reason for how it feels like things take so long when you're young compared to when you're older, 2 factors, and I find this interesting. So when you're 19 years old, you've got 60 years of your life ahead of you. Mm. When you're 60 years old, you've lived 80% of your life, just about.
Sure.
Right? So, or 70% of your life. Whereas when you're that young, you've only lived 15, 20% of your life. So the fact that you have so much life left, it feels like time moves more slowly. And the other thing that I heard, and this one was the most interesting, is that when you're young, you're always experiencing something new. Every day, you're learning something new. You're trying something new. You get on a motorcycle for the first time, or you kiss a girl for the first time, or you go on your first train ride, or you learn something new about science for the first time. And so because we're learning and we're experiencing so much, we condense more into a smaller amount of time. So you actually feel like time passes more slowly because you're experiencing so much. Whereas I think what happens to us when we get a little bit older is we stop being such a student. We don't learn as much, and we don't try as many new things. And so then that feels like time is just because every day is like Groundhog Day. You get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you go to work, you get the same thing for lunch, you come home, you watch the same television show, and then it's rinse, wash, repeat. So it feels like time has flown by because you've not done much. And I think that, when I first heard that, that really reminded me that, like, if we want life to feel more rich or for life to slow down a little bit, let's do more interesting things, do new things. So,
well, it makes sense. It definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why you'll need to come out more.
Well, I love being here for sure, every time. So if you were to give some advice to someone that is new to overlanding and they're getting ready to buy their first vehicle and do their first series of modifications, what would be the first 3 or 4 pieces of advice that you would give to someone that was brand new? Or, as another way to say it, if you could go back in time to your 25-year-old self and say, hey, listen, my boy, I've got a couple pieces of advice around travel, what would you tell yourself?
Well, look, the scary thing is that's like what my daughter and my son, because they've done some trips now on their own, and I've said to them, you actually don't need much, and I was chatting to Bruce Turner from Overlanding with Bruce the other day, and we were saying, we went out with a vehicle with a cooler box, and a few things, and you don't need much. All I can say to people is, you must just buy the things that you feel are beneficial, because you walk into a four-wheel drive store or whatever, and they can sell you. I mean, it's ridiculous what you can get now. I mean, you can get an oven for the back of your vehicle or whatever, and it's absolutely, you don't need all that stuff, Right. So you buy the thing that you want, whether it's a dome tent or whether it's a roof tent. Buy the initial thing that you need to obviously just to get out there. And then go to 1 or 2 small places. You don't have to go far. Just go down the road. Go down the road. Go to a campsite and camp. And then say, well, maybe we need an awning, or maybe we need a different pot, or what. Because a lot of the times, I mean, my dad, for example, when the first trip that he did through Africa, he took so much stuff with him. And if you climb in his vehicles now, all that stuff is gone. And it's not like
his 300 series is. I mean, it's very simple.
100%.
A nice rack, a comfortable roof tent, well organized on the inside, and that's it.
100%, and you don't need all that stuff, And the sad or the good thing is, in the old days, there was no help available, but there's so much help, and you can chat to if you run into trouble. Generally, you can get help.
Yeah.
So buy the thing that you think that you need. And then build from there, because most of the times, even if you buy chairs or whatever, you go out and think, oh, geez, these aren't what we need, or they don't pack nicely in the car or whatever. So start small, and then grow. And it doesn't have to be. I mean, like my son was saying to me the other day, he can't get the fridge into his car. So I said to him, my boy, you don't need the fridge actually. You're going for 2 days. Just make a plan.
Yeah, get a small little cooler or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it totally works. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, no, that's great advice, Jess, and I appreciate that. So when someone is also, just because you spend so much time designing product, when someone is looking at a roof tent, what do you feel are the things that people need to look for to make sure that they have a good experience? Even if they're not buying an Eezi-Awn, if they're buying some other brand, what do you think are some of the most important core attributes of a high quality tent?
Well, look, like I was saying, things have changed, and obviously people want things lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. But the core things for any good product is, first of all, you need to buy. Well, I would say you need to buy a product that the company's been around for a bit of time. Yeah. Because if you have a problem with it, obviously it would be able to get fixed. Because a lot of these times the companies come and go, and you can't get parts and you can't get stuff for it. So I would look at that.
That makes sense.
Buy it from a reputable company, whatever it is, and then if you want to get into the roof tent game, even buy a second-hand roof tent and go out there and see if it's for you. Because roof tents aren't for everybody. Look, obviously I sell them and I make them and I love them. But they're not for everybody.
Yeah.
So you start small, buy a second-hand roof tent, and then build yourself. But
go with something smaller than what you think you need. One of the things I noticed that people do with roof tents is that they buy the biggest one that'll fit on the top of their truck, and they're so much more expensive and so much heavier. Start with, typically a 1400 for 2 people is pretty ideal in my mind.
Well, that's the crazy part is when we started roof tents, we made a 1050, and then we made a 1200, and then we made the 1400, which obviously is around the world now, But the thing is with roof tents is you can't fall off it.
Yeah.
So the thing is so if you're going to sleep in a roof tent, so you're using up that 1400 space.
Right.
So you basically got a double bed,
Yeah.
but normally you leave a little bit of space on the edge that you don't fall off.
Right.
And I say to people, often people say to me, listen, I've got a family, I want to buy a family tent, will we fit? So I go, listen, what you do is, and not just for my tents, what you do is mark it out on the floor what the size of the mattress is, and then lie in it as a family and go, okay, this is perfect for us,
Yeah, sure.
But for 2 people, you definitely don't need more than a 1400 because, like I say, you can't fall out. And yeah, if you go too big, you end up with a lot of other problems. Then your awning doesn't fit, and then this, that it hangs over the side, and then
Or
when
you
you
can't put fuel up there or whatever else. You can't add extra accessories.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, that's good. That's really good advice around roof tents. They've become so incredibly popular, and now you can get any kind of roof tent that you want. And just last night, I was spending some time in a prototype that you've developed of a different style of roof tent. So it's been very neat to see the amount of innovation. So now people can really find a tent that best suits their needs, as opposed to like kind of a one size fits all.
Yeah, look, our range of roof tents has grown astronomically, and we try and make roof tents for everything. Obviously, you don't have to have a 4-wheel drive to have a roof tent. More and more people in Europe and stuff are using them on normal vehicles. So you don't have to have a 4-wheel drive. You can actually fit a roof tent to anything that you want, and that makes it's nice and accessible for everybody.
Yeah. So looking towards the future, what kind of travels do you have planned for yourself? What would be your dream trip, Jess? If you could go do anything in the world, what would you like to do?
Wow. Look, I'd like to go back to South America again.
Yeah.
And spend some time in South America. I've only been in and out. Obviously, Dad traveled through it. I find the people, phenomenal, and it's still got those grassroots feeling, So I'd like to go back to South America if I can. Obviously on the side of the planet, I've got a trip planned up to monopools and stuff like that, for the end of the year.
Nice.
And then we'll see. We'll see where we go.
Well, I look forward to seeing your updates from all of those adventures. Jess, thank you so much for the time today. You're a dear friend. I have such respect for what you and your dad have built. Of course, for me, I also am so grateful for that initial support, through Nathan and through Paul, of providing the 2 roof tents that I used to go up to the Arctic Ocean with that Tacoma so long ago. So I wouldn't have the business that I do, and I wouldn't be able to have this podcast without people like you and your dad and Paul that believed in me very early on. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, Scott, thanks a million, man. Right. It means a lot to me. And look, you're like a brother to me. So thank you very much, man.
Jess, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
And we thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.